We have confirmation now of exactly what Nissan is doing in the United States. And while it's not good if you work at Nissan, Nissan are confirming that they are making a loss at some of their US factories because those factories are very, very inefficient. And also because, to be honest, Nissan sales are going down. Keep in mind, a lot of the cars that Nissan do sell right now in the United States are very cheap, very, very low margin cars. Nissan, of course, reported a loss last year globally, worldwide. And for them to be essentially bailed out by Honda, they have to triple their profits. I mean, they made no profits last year. They have to make a lot of profit this year. This is one of the ways that Nissan hope that that will actually, well, happen. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the channel. I'm Sam Evans. You're watching the Electric Viking. Great to have you with us. US factories apparently won't be shut down yet. Nissan says they are not actually productive. Nissan plans to slash output of 2 high volume models and shrink its hourly workforce at 3 Southeast factories by around 13%. So Nissan is not just firing thousands of staff, they're also shrinking the number of hours that their existing staff work as well. In April, Nissan will ditch the second shift on assembly lines, building the Nissan Rogue, and the Nissan Altima in Smyrna, Tennessee, and in Mississippi. Output will be reduced at an engine plant as well in Tennessee. So yeah, you can see these are some pretty significant changes. It's reflection of what Nissan say is a really challenging auto market. And this is an auto market that is unaffected by Chinese car makers. There is almost no Chinese cars sold in the United States. There is a few, but not very, very few of them are made in China, because really what you have to do if you want to sell a Chinese made car in the United States, you've got to sell an American made car in China. And General Motors does that. So some of GM's cars, they actually make them in China. They ship them to the United States and they pay no tariffs at all, because Trump's rule that he made in his first presidency, his first innings at the crease, one of the rules he made was, okay, if you're making a car in America and you ship that to China, then we'll take one back from China with no tariff. That rule is still in place. So that's how Volvo is able to sell Chinese-made cars in the United States and pay no tariffs. But that's getting more and more difficult because production in the US is just, the cost of production in the US is very high. Wages in the United States are very, very high. And the Nissan Rogue and the Nissan Altima are both crappy old cars. They are. They're old school. They're technologically, to be honest, not that different to cars from 20 years ago. Nissan will offer buyouts as well to more than 1,500 employees. So they're saying more than 1,500, meaning basically the media said, Nissan, what is more than 1,500? And Nissan like, it's something. Could be 2,000, could be 2,500. I've got no idea. But this is a pretty big number, considering Nissan doesn't even have that many staff in the United States to begin with. Nissan North America's head of manufacturing and supply chain management, David Johnson, described the pullback, okay, as a momentary reaction. This is just a momentary reaction to reduced customer demand. He wouldn't disclose the planned reduction in US output. We see the market being very challenging for certain product lines, Johnson said. Plant utilization rates are not so favorable right now, especially when you look at the 2-shift pattern. Really, I mean, what a bizarre thing to say. What kind of a car company says we're making major decisions, firing, possibly thousands of staff, shutting down production lines, but this is just a momentary reaction. I mean, really? You're not going to plan for the next 2, 3, 4 years? Just going to momentarily react from time to time when you feel like it? I don't know. That doesn't sound like a smart decision, if you ask me. Now, I understand you need to be able to pivot as a car company, but let's be honest. The Nissan Rogue is not selling because it's an old car, right? It's not good. It's just an average bucket of bolts. No one ever walks into a Nissan dealership going, yes, just bought myself a Nissan Rogue. Yes, I feel great. They buy a Nissan Rogue and walk away going, yeah, all right, I've got a Nissan Rogue, let's get on with life. The US retrenchment plan is part of a global restructuring as Nissan attempts to reverse a steep decline in sales. It's going to fire around 10,000 people worldwide this year and cut global factory output by 20%. Now, that was after more cuts last year. They closed several factories around the world in 2024. In fact, one of the factories they closed, the Chinese company Chery, they are now building electric cars at that factory that's in Spain, that factory that shut down. The Rogue compact crossover and the Ultimate midsize sedan are Nissan's sales workhorses. And this is the issue here, right? This is why it's going to get worse, because it's not like demand for those two mediocre vehicles is going to suddenly go back to what it once was. If anything, it's going to continue to fall. The two nameplates, Nissan's top-selling American-made products, combined accounted for 42% of the brand's 865,938, basically 866,000 deliveries last year. Clearly, the United States car market is the most important car market alongside China for Nissan. And while Rogue sales fell by 9.5%, while the Altima dropped 11%. But those numbers don't paint a true and accurate picture of what's happening, because Nissan were forced by dealerships and by economic reality to massively discount those vehicles, right? It was offering Nissan Rogues at huge discounts, because even at the end of 2024, Nissan still had 2023 model Rogues, thousands of them all around the United States. They had to offer enormous discounts to move them, to get rid of them. And that's part of the reason why Nissan made no profit last year. It lost money. The Rogue was plagued by oversupply, says Automotive News, last year because of the delayed launch of the 2024 model. That's why. Just the delayed launch of a 2024 model, which was not very different. The lack of a hybrid variant, they say, has deterred some shoppers from considering the Rogue. Johnson said eliminating a shift at each plant would result in a slight decrease in total output and boost cost effectiveness compared with what is now a very inefficient two-shift operation. He said their operations are very inefficient. We are not hampering the overall capacity of the plants, he said. Suppliers will feel the decline in Rogue and Ultima output in the short term, though. That's the only volume pieces they have left, said a supplier source who asked not to be identified. Everyone's banking on these to make money. Nissan said it would inform suppliers of the production changes January 30. Johnson said supply contracts will be negotiated on a case-by-case basis, but plan on volume. Nissan will offer voluntary severance packages to hourly workers, but did not specify the eligibility criteria. Last year, Nissan also cut salaried jobs. They cut 500 salaried jobs in the United States, and the automaker offered buyouts to Nissan and Infiniti employees at least 52 years old in certain non-manufacturing businesses and to those 55 years and over in manufacturing. So what about Nissan's EV plans? Well, they've been all cancelled, basically. Nissan was planning for quite a while to build two different electric sedan-y type models, and they cancelled those, and they decided, you know what, no, people don't want sedans anymore. Let's do an electric SUV. They've cancelled that one too. Johnson said Nissan's long-term production plans, including making electric crossovers and sedans in Canton, remain on track, even though according to Nissan, the company, they've been cancelled. Last year, Nissan told suppliers it would delay EV production in Canton as it assessed consumer demand for them. The Trump administration's plan to pull government support for EVs sounds like it has potentially cancelled Nissan's EV plans. For now, Nissan expects to begin building electric crossovers in 2028, followed by battery-powered sedans if they still exist, if the company still exists, potentially in 2030. So what was meant to happen in 2025 has been pushed back to 2028. So it has been cancelled. They're just coming up with a date. When are you going to build them? 2028? Sound good? Yeah? All right. We'll do it then. Maybe. We are trying to pull that ahead because we don't like to launch two models at the same time, Johnson said. Now, they don't have any models to launch. I don't know what he's talking about. EV production will require a ramp up in hiring for the Mississippi plant. The volume outlook for the EVs puts us back on a two-shift pattern, he said. Now, honestly, guys, I don't recommend buying a Nissan. I don't. Now, people make this comment and they say, I'm not going to buy that new Chinese car because that brand's not going to exist in Australia anymore. They're not going to be around in 2030. They're going to go bankrupt. Now, this is coming from Toyota, by the way, and consumers as well. But what do you think's more likely, right? A car company in China that has no debt and is willing to sell at a loss, but has basically no debt today, and has some pretty good funding from the Chinese government, and has some pretty good technology, and only makes EVs, and people think they're forward-thinking. versus Nissan, who have huge debt, whose debt is rated at junk, the only automaker in the world whose debt is rated at junk, whose sales are in free fall, who have no cars that anyone thinks are actually really desirable, and has cancelled all its new products basically because it made losses for 3 successive quarters last year. Who's more likely to go bankrupt? Which of those scenarios do you think? I mean, just because a company exists, just because Kodak existed, didn't mean it was any less likely to go bankrupt. Let me know what your thoughts are.